The church was lit up with faithful who were rushing in for Christmas Eve Mass that day. The architecture of that church was traditional, similar to St. Anthony's Chapel. It was long, the sanctuary space was at the front, 2 sets of pews going from front to the very back. There were stained glass windows that were dressing the walls in 2 tiers. The first tier ran along your eyesight at eye level, the second tier high above the high ceilings. The mood inside that church was very warm. It was inviting, it was festive. People were in there dressed to impress as they were looking forward to their Christmas Eve dinners after Mass. Now, with the gaze following all of the marble columns that were along the side, your eyes were led to the sanctuary up by the altar. There stood 4 very tall Christmas trees, completely lit up with Christmas lights that were white. And they made this beautiful backdrop for everything inside. For the altar, for the tabernacle, for the nativity set with the baby Jesus now laying in the manger. The marble floor was lit up with the reflection of whites and reds from the poinsettias. Now everything inside of that church spoke of God. Everything inside of that church signaled God's presence, God's existence. The community gathered as one, in one faith, one God. In the faces of the children who were excited to see what gifts they would get when they woke up the following day. In the beauty of the church, in the tabernacle, everything. Now there sat a young man, age 18, about 10 pews from the front. He was oblivious to the beauty that surrounded him, and all he could do was stare at one of the candles on top of the altar, and he did what he had been doing every Sunday for the past weeks. He prayed, "Please, God, if you exist, give me proof. Do anything. I will take any indication. Please, God, if you exist, make the flame of that candle flicker. Better yet, blow it out. Please do something." And like every other time that he prayed for this very same thing, nothing happened. The flame just simply swayed to the movement of the breeze. You see, this young man had an encounter with Jesus a few years earlier when he was 16 at this charismatic retreat, and there he learned that Jesus was powerful and that Jesus could do so many great things, and that was very attractive for him. So he got involved. He started going to youth group, going to retreat after retreat, heard testimonies about how Jesus did powerful things in people's lives. He loved to hear about miracles, the supernatural. He even experienced what he considered to be supernatural events in his own life, which just amplified the eagerness to follow Jesus so that he could see more, so that he could experience more, so that he could receive more, until he got to the point where it wasn't enough. Over time, the young man would see nothing new. He would experience nothing new. He would receive nothing new. He kept following Jesus. He kept doing what he was doing, kept going to retreat after retreat, but now they all seemed the same. He wanted more. It wasn't enough. Now, over time, the thought came to him, well, maybe there is nothing else. Maybe this is it. Maybe it's all in my head and there's nothing else. So that Christmas Eve, he would give God one of his last attempts as he prayed, "Please, God, if you exist, give me something new. Please, if you are real, give me a sign. Make that flame flicker. Better yet, blow it out." Would it flicker? Would it be blown out? To be continued. Have you ever felt like some things are not enough? Well, yes, Father, every morning I get up thinking I didn't get enough sleep. Huh? Yep, I'm with you. Or maybe you look at your bank account. God, I don't have enough money. The busy days go by. You didn't get everything you needed done. There aren't enough hours in the day. You go to the drive-thru, then you open up that bag of deliciousness and you see that you didn't get enough napkins all the time. Then you're looking at your greasy fingers. What do I do? You just wipe them off. If you have cloth seats, just wipe on the bottom of the cloth seat. No one else? No? Me either. I was just saying. We're always noticing when we don't have enough. Now, some sociologists suggest that this is something that's wired into us, into our brains, that we are wired to recognize when we don't have enough so that we can get up and be on the move and search for something else, because that's part of our hunter-gatherer origins. And that's good because this feeling of not having enough makes us recognize when we don't, and then we are able to then have enough for our survivals, the essentials. The problem comes when we have enough, but enough is no longer enough. And that's where greed comes in. Greed is being consumed by the desire for more. Now, we run into this very same temptation when it comes to our search for God. Is that not why people flocked to Jesus? We saw that in the gospel. A large crowd followed him because of their love and faith in God. Nope. A large crowd followed him because they saw the signs that he was performing on the sick. You see, people had many needs. Some of them were sick, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and what they received from the religious leaders was not enough. So they kept looking for more. And Jesus then became an opportunity for them for more. So they sought him out in great numbers. Some wanted to be healed. Others just wanted to see signs, see miracles, to be fed more. Now, isn't that the reason why most people go to God today? It was true for me. Many people turn to God today in times of struggles, in times of pain, in times of need, when something shakes our foundation. I've only been a priest for 2 years. Out of my 2 years, only once have I received the call of somebody who wanted to speak with me because they wanted to tell me about all of the good things in their lives, and they were thankful. Only once. And the rest of the time, Father, I don't know what to do. Father, I can't see God in this. Father, help. Then there's also the other side where people come to God out of curiosity, because we hear that God can do great things, that if you are a churchgoer, then God will bless you. Okay, well, let's see what God has to offer me. Let's see what I can receive. Let's see what more I can get. Now, these might not be the right motivations for people to approach God. They're rather selfish and self-centered, but it is a start. And you know what? God will never turn away anyone who approaches him, no matter what the reason. And that's clear in the gospel. When Jesus raises his eyes, he sees the mass of people, the large crowd that was coming to him. He didn't tell them to go away. He didn't try to hide. He didn't tell the disciples to tell them to come back another day. He tells or asks Philip, where can we buy enough food for them? Now that's a very curious question. Nowhere does it say that people were seeking food. Nowhere does it say that people were hungry. They were just there to seek signs. Now Jesus knew what they wanted. He could have easily spent all day performing all of the signs and miracles that they wanted to see and feed their curiosity for more, feed their need for the supernatural, but he doesn't. The question that he poses to Philip then is to find out if Philip could see what Jesus himself could see, or if Philip thought just like everyone else. So poor Philip, he responds, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough. It would not be enough. Philip concluded that they didn't have enough. He concluded that Jesus and the group could not meet the needs of the people. He didn't see what Jesus could see. So very patiently, Jesus continues. He gives them the instructions on what to do, and by the end of the day, ends up feeding people not only with enough food, but with an abundance. There were 12 baskets left. So the reason that Jesus performed this miracle, the only miracle that Jesus does without being asked, is to get us to realize that when it comes to God, we need to come to the conviction that He is enough. In many ways, Jesus is saying to us, I am more than enough. Stop thinking about me. Stop thinking about God the way you think about everything else in your life. Otherwise, I will never be enough for you. And just as easy as you come flocking to me, you're going to be leaving. You know, people recognized Jesus not in the miracle, not in the signs, but in being fed. It's something that they were not expecting. That's not what they were there for. Now, as Catholics, we read this and we easily interpret it as Jesus giving them a reference to the Eucharist. Being so, dear Catholics, when it comes to Mass, do you feel like you get enough? If Jesus is fully present in the Eucharist, and the Eucharist is really what it promises to be, and what St. Paul affirms in that second reading, if it unites us as one body, one Spirit, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, if it transforms us to be like Jesus and gives us eternal life, then have we come to the conviction that Jesus in the Eucharist is enough? Or do we leave Mass the same as we came in, or worse, feeling indifferent, empty, wanting more? Now, if we're not open to the conviction that in the Eucharist, as Catholics, we do receive the full generosity of God, then it might just be a matter of time before we realize that we don't have enough, and the search for God continues elsewhere. I'm sure many of you might have family members or friends who left the church for another one where the music is better, where the preaching is better. Sorry. Or they left faith altogether because they couldn't find in the Eucharist what they were looking for. Someday I'll share this story with you by my father. He left the faith. He's now a pastor with the Seventh-day Adventist tradition. For him, the Eucharist was not enough. Not that it was his fault, he just didn't quite understand. So over the next 5 weeks, dear church, we will continue reading from John chapter 6. It's this long chapter, the Bread of Life discourse. Today is the introduction. It's to be continued. But it will give us an opportunity to deepen our understanding of the Eucharist so that we can renew our affirmation that, yes, Jesus, you are enough. What that means for each one of us might be different, but it'll be the same conviction. Jesus, you are enough. So Christmas Mass ended that evening. Families got up. They went up to the front where the nativity set was. They took their photos for Facebook. They left, one after another. They turned off all of the candles. They turned off all of the lights, and I stayed behind. The church was now as dark and empty as I felt inside. There I was, kneeling, looking up at the altar, looking at that candle, saying, God, if you exist, give me more. God, if you exist, light that candle. Do something. Give me a sign. That candle never lit up. And I'm glad it didn't, because a few months later, I would come to have an unexpected encounter with the generosity of Jesus in my life that would completely change it. An encounter that made me exclaim literally, Jesus, you are enough. What happened? To be continued.